In 1579, the most feared warrior in Tokugawa Ieyasu's army was ordered to behead a boy of 21, his own lord's son. He raised the blade. He could not bring it down. He wept and stepped back. They called him Demon Hanzo. His name was Hattori Hanzo, and if that sounds familiar, it is because Kill Bill gave that name to its legendary swordsmith. Ever since, the world has assumed the real Hattori Hanzo was a ninja. He was not. He was a spearman, an ordinary samurai, and the man who once saved the future ruler of Japan by walking him through 4 days of enemy country. This is who he really was. To understand him, forget the black hood and the throwing stars. Hattori Hanzo was born in 1542 in Mikawa, Tokugawa country, and he was raised as an ordinary samurai of that province. It is true that his family line came out of Iga, the mountain region famous for its shinobi, its spies and infiltrators. His father had left Iga a generation earlier and taken service with the Matsudaira, the family that would become the Tokugawa. So Hanzo carried Iga blood. He did not carry Iga training. What he carried was a spear. He fought his first battle at 16 in a night attack on a fortress, and he kept fighting for the next 40 years, in the open, in armor, in the front rank, in the way any Tokugawa retainer fought. He was not subtle. He was not hidden. He was violent, direct, and very good at it. His fellow retainers gave him a name for it: Oni Hanzo, Demon Hanzo. It is worth stopping on that, because it is the exact opposite of what the world now believes about him. The real Hattori Hanzo was famous in his own lifetime for being the least secretive man on the battlefield. Then came the day that made him. In the summer of 1582, Oda Nobunaga, the warlord who had all but conquered Japan, was betrayed and killed in a temple in Kyoto. The country broke open in a single morning, and Tokugawa Ieyasu was caught in the worst possible place, far from home, near Osaka, with barely 30 men in provinces that had every reason to hunt him down. Every road back to Mikawa ran through hostile country. Bandits, opportunists, and villages that would happily trade a lord's head for a reward. Ieyasu, by some accounts, said he would rather kill himself than be taken, and it was Hanzo who told him there was a way. The way ran through Iga, the mountains his family had come from. Iga had just been crushed by Nobunaga. Its people hated the man who had done it, and Hanzo could speak to them as one of their own blood. For 4 days he moved the future ruler of Japan through those mountains, buying passage, calling in his family's name, negotiating with local strongmen village by village. No great battle, no heroics, just a man using the one thing he had that no other Tokugawa retainer had. They came out the other side alive. 2 years later, Ieyasu began the climb that ended with him ruling all of Japan for his family for 2.5 centuries. None of it happens if those 4 days go differently. For saving him, Ieyasu gave Hanzo something unusual. He put roughly 200 men of Iga, real shinobi, real infiltrators, under Hanzo's command. And here is the knot at the center of this story. Hanzo commanded ninja. Hanzo was not a ninja. He was their officer, not one of them. He held them the way a lord holds any unit. He was responsible for their pay, their housing, their discipline, and for pointing them at problems. The men themselves were the specialists. Hanzo was the samurai who owned the paperwork. It is a very ordinary kind of authority, and it is precisely the detail that 400 years of storytelling has flattened. Say a man commanded ninja often enough, and eventually people simply hear that he was one. There is something else worth noticing. Hanzo was given those men because of his blood, not his skill, because he could talk to Iga, not because he could fight like Iga. He spent his career being useful for who his family had been, and that is a fragile thing to be useful for. It works exactly as long as the men on the other end of it agree to it. Hanzo died in 1596, at 55. He did not die in battle. He simply died before the war that decided Japan, before his lord became shogun, before any of the glory arrived. His son inherited the name, the rank, and the 200 men of Iga. He did not inherit the blood claim in any way that mattered, because he had never been the man who could speak to them. Within a few years, the Iga men had had enough of him. They protested, they refused, and the arrangement collapsed. The Hattori family lost command of the Iga unit entirely. The one thing that had made them useful, the bridge between the Tokugawa and Iga, was gone, and with it the family's place near power. It is a quiet bureaucratic ending. No last stand, no burning castle. A house that had been built on being the only people who could make a particular phone call, and then the call stopped being needed. And the strange part is what happened next, because as the real Hattori family faded out of the records, the name Hattori Hanzo did the opposite. It began to grow. Two things kept the name alive. The first is a gate. When the Tokugawa built their great castle in Edo, the city that became Tokyo, one of its gates ended up carrying his name, Hanzomon, the Hanzo Gate. It is still there. There is a subway line named after it. Millions of people pass through that name every day without knowing there was a man attached to it. The second is storytelling, and storytelling is far less careful than stone. Through the peace of the Edo period, and then into the 20th century, Japanese popular fiction discovered that ninja were wonderful material, and it needed famous ninja to hang the stories on. Hanzo was perfect. He had the Iga connection. He commanded shinobi. He had a demon nickname. He was close enough to real power to matter, and dead long enough to not object. So the spearman quietly became a shadow. By the time the name reached the West, the transformation was complete, and a film could hand it to a legendary swordsmith without anyone blinking. Remember Sanada Yukimura from our last story? He lost everything and was rebuilt as a hero. Hanzo was rebuilt into a different man entirely. And there is something a little sad in that, because the real story was better. A blunt, loud, violent man who was famous for not hiding, who could not bring himself to kill a boy, who saved a dynasty not with a blade in the dark, but by talking to people for 4 days. History did not forget Hattori Hanzo. It did something stranger. It kept the name and threw away the man. If this story was worth your time, subscribe. Forgotten Japan tells the stories that the famous tales of samurai and shoguns leave out.